morning, Antelope Valley, and welcome to your episode of Your Home in the AV. This is our 6th episode, so we are chugging along. Today, we have an exciting person that I am glad to have on board with us today to help explain what she does. Her name is Sandra Fernandez. She is a title officer at Monarch Title, and she's going to help give insight as to what title does to the real estate transaction. Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. And just to clear it, I'm a title rep. So my title officer is actually Steve Lombardo, and we have 2 other title officers that we work with at my office, but I'm the rep. So I represent, the company Monarch Title here in the AV.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah,
I appreciate
you're
that.
welcome.
All right.
Thank you so much for having us.
Something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we brought you on here to help give our audience a little bit of insight as to what title does for the real estate transaction.
Mhm.
So can you tell us what does title do for the real estate deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we're that insurance company that nobody even knows that they have. And basically what we do is when the property goes into escrow, we make sure that the title is free and clear of any liens, any judgments, anything that might affect the buyer when buying that property, right? So we pull what's called a preliminary report. On that report, we're able to see if there's any judgments, any liens, anything that might affect the sale of the home. And before the property closes, we clear all those items, so that the buyer doesn't inherit any type of judgments or liens that might come with the home. So that's basically what we do. We also pull what's called a statement of information. And on that statement of information, we check to see that the seller doesn't have anything either, any type of judgments or liens that might prevent, the buyer from buying that property. And so once they fill out the statement of information, we do our due diligence. We check that everything's okay with the seller. And then once we clear all those items, then, we are able to close on that transaction. In the event that something is missed, that's where the insurance comes in, and we take care of those items for the buyer. In a nutshell, that's what title insurance is. And so, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's actually good to know. So let me ask you another question.
Sure.
What are some key takeaways that the home buyer needs to know? When I see the title report, sometimes it's very confusing. So what are some key takeaways that the buyer needs to know when they're looking at the title report?
Well, for the most part, typically if they work with, an escrow company, the escrow company takes care of all those liens. A lot of times they might get that report and they're like, it goes above their head. They might not know what it is, but that's why it's so important to work with a team that can help assist you, and just answer those questions for you. So they want to look to make sure that there's no solar liens, no judgments. If there's something like, for example, an open loan, those are the things that they're looking at, And like I said, a lot of times the buyer is not the one that deals with that too much. It's the seller, So the seller, they want to make sure that, all those things that are coming up are theirs. And if they're not theirs, we have to make sure that that's clear too. One of the things that I did forget to mention is that we also prevent fraud, So we want to make sure that whoever's selling the property is the rightful owner, So we have to make sure that we look at the vesting because, the seller might be on there and they might have forgotten that they had added, an X, and now we got to find the X and make sure that that person signs off on it. So that's one of the things that we look out for. And also for fraudulent transactions, because that happens and it's very common in our industry. And so those are the things that we try to prevent.
It's a good thing that you brought that up. So that was going to kind of lead me to my next question. So in your experience, what are in title some of the key things that usually delays what you guys are doing?
So a lot of times is, I'm sorry, agents, but sometimes we forget to order the preliminary report when the property gets listed. So one of my advice is to always order that ahead of time. Once you get that listing signed, make sure you order the preliminary report, because if there's anything that is clouding the title, we can be working as the property is listed so that when the property goes into escrow, those things are taken care of, especially like if you have a property that's in a trust, right? We need to see the trust records. And if that trust was created, 20 years ago, and you don't know where you left it, we have to make sure that we have a copy of it, So whether that means you reaching out to the attorney that made it 20 years ago, or whether it's, hey mom, where's that trust information, So those are all things that can really help us. Once you go into that signing of the listing agreement, you want to make sure you ask all those questions. So I always tell my agents that once you're going into a listing presentation, make sure you order the property profile so that you can ask the proper questions, whether it's your property, I see that your property's in a trust, we're going to need the trust documents. I see that, I'm meeting with you, but I see that Jane Doe is also on title. Who is Jane Doe? So those are all things that you can ask ahead of time. Sometimes what we see too, when we pull those property profiles is we might see a property that's listed as a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house, but then you go and you start touring the house and you see that there's 6 bedrooms. You want to ask, was this permitted? That's not something that we insure. It's not something that we take care of, but it does come out on title. And so a lot of times we get those questions like, hey, I see that on title. It's showing as a 4-2. What's going on? But you just want to ask the client, was this permitted? And if not, then they would have to go to the city and figure out what happened, or how to get it permitted. And so that's where we step in. That's where we come in and we provide those tools for the agent to have access to that information ahead of time.
So it seems like you guys are called title, but you guys should also add investigator to the end of that because it sounds like you do a lot of digging, a lot of investigating just to make sure that the property is free and clear to whoever's purchasing it.
Yes.
Okay. So what are the most common here in the AV, as we're talking about here in the AV?
Yes.
What are the most common issues that you find in title?
So the most common thing that we face here in the Antelope Valley is we do a lot of land deals. Believe it or not, we still have a lot of land transactions that happen. And because land deals tend to typically be, pretty inexpensive, we're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to buy this land for $5,000. I don't need title insurance for what? I mean, it's just a waste of money, right? People assume. And what ends up happening is that we get a cloud in title. There's sometimes, land deals that didn't have title insurance more than 20 years ago, right? But during those 20 years, they might have been passed on with 4 different, sellers. And so now we have to go back to when the property was first insured and figure out if those transactions were done legally, right? Because there's no guarantee that that person, didn't commit fraud when they were selling that property, or that person still might be the rightful owner and, something fishy might have happened. So we have to go back and figure out what took place during those, 4 sellers and during those 20 years. And so sometimes, people want to do it because they just want to save money, but they end up getting into more of a mess, and if in those 4, transactions, if something happened, there was a lien, there was a judgment against any of those sellers, that's going to follow the property, and that's going to be a liability to now the new buyer who's buying that property. You know what I mean? So we see that a lot, and those transactions, especially land deals, they tend to be longer, and so that's why I always recommend that even if it's not a requirement that you get title insurance, because one of the things that people assume is that title insurance is required in every transaction, and that's not true. Typically, they're required whenever you have a loan because the lender will require it. But if you're paying cash, you can opt out. And so a lot of those land deals, because they are cash, they opt out and then they end up inheriting a nightmare, So that's something that we see it's very common here. And then there's also a lot of fraud that happens with land deals where you get somebody from a different country who's trying to buy this piece of land, and they're like, oh yeah, well I'm in I don't know, a different country, right? And how can we go about doing this? And they end up getting their own notaries, and they just do all kinds of fishy things that. Those are all red flags that we look out for. And again, if you didn't have a title company looking at all those red flags, and we have, experienced title officers that look at all these things, you can possibly lose a lot of money, on sales like that. So that's something that we deal with a lot, and it's very common here in the Antelope Valley.
Okay. So I just want to expand on that. So I did have a question. So
Hmm.
is it possible, say I owned a piece of land and on my own without title, I could quit claim deed it to my daughter.
Hmm.
Could I do that without title being involved?
Yeah, you can do that. The thing is that once she's getting ready to sell that property, we're just going to need your signature to just, tell us that you um, basically gave her that right,
That I in
that
fact
I in fact
did
did. And
was part of that transaction and
exactly.
that she's not doing it behind my back.
Basically, yes. Yes, in
Okay.
other words.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I didn't know that. So
Hmm.
now I know, I guess you can do real property without title, but eventually it would have to be cleared anyway because of the title needs to be free and clear when someone purchases it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And just so you know, you're going to have the title insurance, but not your daughter.
Okay.
So it doesn't transfer over. So the title insurance was for you, but not your daughter.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. So what would you say to the buyers out there? What advice can you give them when they're looking to buy?
So for me, I would tell them to go for it. If you can afford to do so, don't worry. Don't worry about what the market is doing because no matter what, it's a good investment. For me, it opened up so many doors. Just personally, it allows you to have like a safe blanket that you can always access. You know what I mean? Because your property is most likely going to be gaining equity. So it's like a little savings account that you don't touch, right? So in the event that you're short on college funds for your kids, that's money that can be pulled from that equity. If something unfortunate happens in your family where you have a sick family member and you need access to funds, that's money that can be pulled from that equity. And it also helps you with generational wealth. It's that opportunity for you to be able to have money and pull it from your equity or sell your property. Like it builds generational wealth. And so for me, don't worry about what the interest rates are doing. Don't worry about where the market values are. If you can afford to buy, it's always a good idea. And so that's my advice. And of course, always have title insurance on all of your properties that you purchase because it's going to save you thousands of dollars or millions. I don't know, depending on the worth of your home and what might be attached to that property. So, yeah, that's my advice.
So what it seems like to me is that most people are waiting for the market. Most people are sitting there, I'm waiting for it to go down. I'm waiting for it to go down to make the right purchase. But when the home prices go down, interest rates go up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's never the right time because it's always a yin or a yang, a give or a get. So
Yes.
you always have it's when you're absolutely ready and you can afford it is when you
Mm-hmm.
should buy a house because it's an investment in your future, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Awesome.
exactly. And I mean, I've been in this industry for over 10 years now, and I started off in lending. And so that was the main thing that people would tell me, oh, well, we're waiting for the houses to go down. We're waiting for the houses to go down. It's been 10 years, and I haven't seen the houses go down based on, what the houses were for 10 years ago, And so it's just one of those things where I look at the market trends. Like you said, I'm an investigator. So I constantly look at what the market is doing. I constantly get reports and stuff like that. And so like I said, just do it whenever it makes sense for you and your family and look at your budget and not at what the market is doing. Because if you're thinking of, you know, 30 years from now, that house is going to be worth more than what it is now. If you're a flipper, then, that's a different thing that you have to look at. But if you're looking for just to buy it to either invest for the long run, long term, then I would say just do it when it's the right time for you and your family.
And that is some solid advice.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. So, in ending, is there anything that you want to say directly to our audience that you feel that they may benefit from?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, whenever you're buying a house, you want to make sure that you're working with a team that you can trust. that you have easy access to the people that are helping you. Whenever you're in a transaction, there's so many people involved. You have your buyer's agent, your seller's agent, you have escrow, you have title, you have all these different people that are doing inspections in your home, and so you just want to make sure that whoever you're working with, that you can easily pick up the phone and call them, because I know that it's a very stressful time for a lot of the buyers. So, just have a team behind you that can answer those questions. Because again, it could get very confusing. And so I just want you guys to know that I'm that person for you. If there's anything that you need, you can call my cell phone and I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. I do speak Spanish as well, so hablo español. Cualquier pregunta que tengan, con confianza, estamos aquí para servirle.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
I speak Spanish too.
Oh, there you go. I guess we're going to have to do a Spanish episode, right?
Yeah, I think I'm going to pencil that in so we could do a Spanish episode. So thank you so much for joining. And I wanted to thank the audience. Thank you, everyone, for watching our podcast. This is George Mercado with Energy Realty. This is your home in the AV. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's help build momentum. We are just trying to get information to anybody who's looking to purchase so they could be a well-informed buyer. I want to thank you guys again for being here. And please like and share. Please like and share. We need to get the word out. We want everybody to be happy with their purchases. If you have any questions about title, please leave it in the message me or inbox, and then I could ask Sandra and she can get back to me and I'll give you guys the information at the next week's episode. Thank you all for joining Your Home in the AV. Again, my name is George Mercado and I'm with Energy Realty.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.